Hello everybody. Paul understands Japanese but is clueless when it comes to an Irish brogue. The Alpha Academy is advancing and Rey'S challenge is accepted in a fashion fitted only for Hell in a Cell. I'm Casualeann. Come with me. Segment 1 begins with Kevin Patrick and Paul Heyman. And Kevin Patrick introduces himself as filling in for the head of the broadcast panel, Kayla Braxton, and demonstrates some early respect to Paul Heyman. After this, Paul Heyman calls for subtitles, butchers his name, and more like drags it through the dirtied streets. I think he calls him Mike or something else, not even close to Kevin Patrick's actual name. But Kevin Patrick soldiers on. He calls the past episode of Smackdown incredible. Paul Heyman, relentless in his undermining, seeks to redefine incredible as Smackdown is credible, whereas Raw, where Kevin Patrick is from, is incredible in that it lacks credibility. Yeah, Paul seeks to further Smackdown's credibility through the hallowed halls of self-congratulation, deeming himself a legend, God's gift to sports entertainment, a national treasure indeed. In addition to those hearty backslaps, he congratulates Kevin Patrick on graduating from Raw and invites him to run down the very credible episode of Smackdown. Now, we know it's true. Smackdown is Ben & Jerry's. Raw is like that little plastic cup of ice cream with the paper on top that you used to eat in grade school or at someone's birthday party. But dang, this was harsh. They run down Cesaro obliterating the Ding Dong Hello set and Seth Rollins along with it. And Kevin Patrick compliments Paul Heyman, calling him dapper this evening. Paul again calls for subtitles. He is harping on this as badly as, or maybe almost as badly as I was when they refused to do that for Shinsuke. And in that moment, I realize, oh no, just like Where is SummerSlam, just like Are You Flirting With Me, and just like Vendettas, this might be the theme for the whole show. Paul says he knows that KP is from Nebraska. He corrects him, noting he's from Dublin, Georgia. Paul asks the crew again what he said. It's getting so annoying. And Kevin Patrick's like, yeah, subtitles would be great. Paul agrees with him. Then Kevin Patrick counters, so you did understand what I said. And Paul says the production guy, who's also Irish, told him what Kevin Patrick said. And I'm thinking, okay, Patrick's Dublin accent is not that thick. He needs the calm all the way down. They continue running down a few of the happenings, namely Kevin Owens and Big E defeated Apollo Crews and Sami Zayn. And Kevin Patrick again tries to invite Paul in, stating that he knows Paul is not a fan of Sami Zayn. And again, Paul pretends not to know what he's saying. And Kevin Patrick says they'll get it straight during the commercial. He finally tries to address the end of Smackdown with Roman Reigns and Rey and Dominic Mysterio, and finally, miraculously, Heyman's ears fully turn on. He calls Rey's challenge and the aftermath disturbing, noting that Rey didn't even wait for Roman's answer to attack, and that Paul will answer Rey's challenge. And Kevin Patrick waits with anticipation. And Paul clarifies he's just giving the audience a hook for the end of the show, jabbing that this is why nobody watches Raw anymore. And whispers that he actually misses Kayla Braxton. There's a look that KPZ gives to the camera, and I may put it in the screenshots. He says this is going to be a very long show. The look is so menacing, I had to pause it. Loved it. To the point about Raw, it's too tantalizing a question to ignore. Please, whomever may be watching right now, let me know in the comments, what's your real reason nobody watches Raw anymore? Now the ratings are at an all-time low. I can't wait to see her responses. For this segment, it isn't often that I criticize Paul Heyman. He knows what he's doing and he does it extremely well. And I've called him many a time before the unsung hero of talking smack. And I still agree with that. But I feel like it just went too far this time. It was annoying trying to take the notes and slog through what Kevin Patrick was trying to do in interviewing or in commentary while Paul just refused to engage until Roman Reigns was mentioned. It was like the full sentence equivalent of the what chant, but 6 minutes long. I'm thinking, yeah, it's gonna be a long show indeed, Mr. Patrick. We get a commercial break, and segment 2 is with the Alpha Academy. Kevin Patrick reintroduces himself as being alongside the wonderful Mr. Paul Heyman, with a decidedly sarcastic tone in his brogue now. Seated next to them is Chad Gable and the clean-shaven kinesthetic artist formerly known as Otis, the Alpha Academy. When asked how they must be feeling about the disrespect shown by the Street Profits, Chad is insulted, answering he extended to the Street Profits an invitation, in his words, to the Academy, something that is uncommon. Chad hints that such disrespect is not a good thing for the Street Profits. Chad says that he has released the Alpha in Otis, and that, if he may say so, it's terrifying. Now, Otis has a question for Kevin Patrick. First thing he's uttered all night: how's Montez Ford doing? Kevin Patrick informs him and the audience that he has a partial rib fracture. Now, it's a kayfabe injury, of course, he's not really hurt. But he goes further to express disappointment because he thought that the Montez Ford-Chad Gable singles match was an athletic contest that was ended in DQ because of Otis's attack. He notes the angry streak in Otis has contorted now, calling it sadistic. Otis asks, where's Angelo Dawkins? And he threatens him. He notes that he'd be worried if he were him, and that there's only so much that Otis can control. Kevin Patrick says Gable must be feeling safe, and what advice would Gable have for the Street Profits? Gable replies that there is nothing to fear from Otis, but they'd make themselves pretty scarce on Smackdown if they were the Street Profits. They leave. Kevin Patrick asks Heyman if he has ever seen that side of Otis. And this is the calmest we'll see Paul for the rest of the night. He says, no. And I don't want to up close anymore. In this segment, I gained new respect for Chad Gable. I knew that he was a force in the ring, but with Otis, there's something that he's doing with this character that made my skin crawl. And that's coming from a horror fan, like hardcore horror fan. It was so creepy, like the way he looks at Otis, and not even so much of what Otis is saying, because what he's saying is kind of boilerplate threatening language, but Otis's delivery and Gable's reaction to it, it's chilling. There's a story that isn't being told on Smackdown, just a hint of the psychological control that Gable exercises over Otis that's really intriguing. I wished they got the opportunity to show more of that instead of just being jobbers without a story behind them. But, such is the nature of the beast. Everybody can't win. But man, this was compelling stuff. Gable sums up their entire dynamic in a single statement towards the end. He says, I'm scared. I'm terrified. I'm so proud of you. We get a commercial break, and segment 3 is with our SmackDown Women's Champion, Bianca Belair. Kevin Patrick welcomes the SmackDown Women's Champion to the set. The real reason Carmella is merely the self-proclaimed most beautiful woman in WWE. I kid. I know that's part of her gimmick. But to this cackle contest of the past couple of weeks, this time Bianca laughing at Bayley when Cesaro destroyed her set, she comments that she had to turn the tables. She admitted that Bayley's laugh was getting to her, but she had to remind herself of who she was and what she'd been through. She was the Smackdown Women's Champion, and she would not let A. Bayley get to her. Now, we'll get back to that A in just a moment. Kevin Patrick asks, how has the locker room dynamic changed? Bianca answers, she's got a target on her back. Ain't nobody hitting it. And Kevin Patrick asks Paul Heyman if he's impressed by how Bianca's been doing as champion. And he responds that this is the future of the women's division. That's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, all of sports entertainment. He agrees that she does have a target on her back, and Bayley is just one of the people targeting her, unless she's the one to actually stop Bianca. And the protective stance that she takes, because she starts to hold her belt as he's talking, the protective stance that she takes when someone mentions that sort of thing is exactly the way that a champion should act. And he even gets a little of his white shadow in the Boondocks side on. He tells her that just because she's paranoid doesn't mean everyone's not out to get her. But her greatness will be defined by how many times that target gets hit and she keeps pressing forward. More brilliance from the special counsel. Not surprising. Kevin Patrick asks, well, where can Bayley get at Bianca Belair? And she answers, when I call myself the EST, I mean it. And that she demonstrates all of that in the ring. Bayley believes the only way she can get to Bianca is mentally, because she knows she cannot match her physically. I am waiting for this pay-per-view. Can I tell you? Because the storytelling around Bianca and Bayley has been a little bit thin. Bayley laughs. Bianca doesn't like it. There. Saved you a month's worth of viewing. But this promo made me interested again. It was more than a little motivating, and it has some depth to it. And with that, I'm going to go back to this A. Bayley idea. A. Bayley is something deep. I'm going to tell you why. That insertion of the indefinite article, A. Bayley, it's so important because it does a couple of things. Now, it diminishes Bianca's opponent. It robs Bayley of a little bit of her individuality, and she becomes not so much a person then as a symptom of an insecure world, a bully, a detractor, something Bianca has seen and heard and overcome before. And two, by reducing her to a mere type, an obstacle to face, she's encouraging, however subtly, anyone else with a Bayley in their lives to cast them aside and keep working, focusing on the task at hand. That is amazing babyface work. She notes at Hell in a Cell, the Kiki King is over, and she hopes Bayley realizes it. Whew. We get another commercial break, and here comes segment 4. Before throwing the floor to Heyman, they announced the latest chapter in a book that no one's reading, sadly. Friday is a battle for the crown when Shinsuke Nakamura fights King Corbin. If he wins, does that mean the King of Strong Style is also the King of the Ring? Does he get a better crown then? I hope. Does the feud get to be over? If so, I'd argue the fans have won. It's not Shinsuke or Corbin's fault, but man, did this get repetitive in a hurry. We're also given the card for Commander Aziz's debut alongside Intercontinental Champion Apollo Crews, and they're teaming against Big E and Kevin Owens. Kevin Patrick lets slip that it's happening next Friday. Please, just drop the Saturday charade. It's okay. But if you're a Paul Heyman specialist, it's the moment that you've been waiting for. Segment 4 is Paul's ball game. Kevin Patrick revisits the hook that Heyman alluded to at the beginning of the show. He reminds the audience that Rey challenged the tribal chief Roman Reigns to a match at Hell in a Cell, and he wants to know if Roman is going to accept. Kevin Patrick has to ask in some form 3 different times before Paul Heyman even begins to respond. And when he does so, it's in Spanish. I stopped after the first line with flashbacks from Shinsuke a few weeks ago, and I said he better not go through his entire response in Spanish with 0 subtitles. But fortunately, he starts to talk up Rey in English. He brings up that he warned Rey not to make this challenge last week. It wasn't repetition, it was continuity. He continues that in seeking revenge for his son's beating, he's challenged the head of the table for Father's Day. Literally something I'd never even thought about. You can't write it better than this, he says. And with that, he lets the light of information in. He has been authorized to accept Rey's challenge for Hell in a Cell against Roman Reigns, which is bad news for Rey Mysterio. Now, among many malevolent monikers he pins on the head of the table, he calls Roman the monarch of the mat, the devil himself. Marvelous. So I think, wow, this puts a real weight on the show, even more so than Adam Pearce's announcement of Charlotte's suspension on Raw Talk a couple of months ago. This challenge wasn't officially accepted on Smackdown right after Rey's attack, or even this coming week on the Go Home Smackdown. It was accepted on Talking Smack. Need I say more? So for this week's must-watch segment, this was tough. I have no clue, people. Anything with Roman is the best part of the Blue brand, especially right now. Bianca was nothing short of inspiring, and the Alpha Academy just launched their characters into a 4th dimension. I have no clue as to who to choose. For storyline reasons alone and kind of the significance of what happened, I have to go with Heyman, segment 4, but this was a tough decision. My rating for this week is 5 out of 5. My very first one. It was a finger snapper from nearly the beginning to the end. I can forgive the 6 minutes of Heyman pretending not to understand Kevin's accent, just because the rest was so outstanding that it completely overwhelmed the first segment. I wished every week was this good. That was Talking Smack from June 12th. Why do you think people have stopped watching Raw? Does Rey have a shot in the cell? Has Roman run his course as a heel? Let me know down in the comments. You know I respond in due course. But be sure to please like, share, comment, and subscribe. That is how my channel grows and gets recommended to others, so it helps when you do. Thank you all so much, as always, for watching, and I'll see you soon.